Kieran?
Some brand new pictures this morning of the room where all of this scandal reportedly happened. They were taken by the Washington Examiner newspaper. According to the paper, they show the room 871 in the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, where Governor Spitzer allegedly met with a prostitute known as Kristen. Well, now the New York Times is reporting that Client 9 booked his Washington hotel room under the name George Fox. The paper says the real George Fox is actually one of Governor Spitzer's campaign contributors. The Times contacted the real Mr. Fox and asked him if he was in Washington on February 13th. His quote, "Why would you think that? I did not." So now that Governor Spitzer has been linked to a prostitution ring, the one-time crusader of corruption now finds himself going from a political watchdog to the doghouse. Joining us now with more is CNN contributor and New York Daily News columnist Errol Lewis, whose wife worked for the governor for years, and Wayne Barrett, senior editor at the Village Voice, who has covered Governor Spitzer for a decade now. Thanks to both of you for being with us. First of all, Errol, you know, as we said, your wife worked with Governor Spitzer. What was the reaction, I guess, in your household yesterday when this news happened?
Well, yeah, my wife, Juanita Scarlett, was his press secretary for 8 years when he was attorney general, so through all of the Wall Street corruption cases and some of those. But, I mean, just devastated. It's not easy to hear from friends, and they do become friends after they're your co-workers. For her, to hear about folks who, you know, uprooted and moved to Albany to try and be part of what was believed to be an important reform administration, and to watch it really just kind of implode barely 14 months after taking office.
You know, Wayne, I'm sure that you, as well as many others who cover Governor Spitzer, have noted the irony in this situation. I mean, when he was the attorney general in New York, he prosecuted cases. He prosecuted prostitution rings. He also prosecuted Wall Street cases where emails were so essential.
Right.
And it just begs the question: how could you be so reckless if this reporting is in fact the true story?
Power is an aphrodisiac. We've certainly seen that even with presidents. And Elliott I just think he lost all sense. It's apparently started sometime in the middle of 2007, which was a particularly bad year for him politically. He was under constant assault. And I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for it, but presumably there's some connection between the difficulty that he was experiencing in his first year as governor. I thought he had a remarkably good year in many ways because he took on the Republicans and he looked like he was winning that struggle with the Republicans. Just on the eve of the break of this case, he won a Senate seat upstate that the Republicans had held since 1880, and he was within one seat of taking the Senate away from the Republicans here in this state. And so he achieved some remarkable things. I think it's all going to come to naught in a matter of days.
What happens now politically? Can he hang on to this, to his governorship?
I just don't see how he can. I think basically resignation is the one negotiating chit that he has. It isn't much of a chit that he brings to the negotiations with the federal prosecutors on this. I'll resign if I don't get indicted, or if I'm indicted on minor charges. I think this is a negotiating ploy. I think he intended to resign yesterday and had second thoughts about it.
And Errol, you knowing him the way that your family does, why do you think that happened yesterday? I mean, we heard a press conference for about 1 minute, and he said, "I'll be getting back to you in short order." Why didn't we hear a resignation yesterday?
Well, many of the rumors that were flying around the Capitol held that he had, in fact, signed the paperwork, and that there were just some technical matters about getting the lieutenant governor together and sort of conducting the ceremony and transferring power in an orderly way as early as this morning. I think what really has happened since then is that the news broke that this wasn't just him getting caught up in an existing investigation of a prostitution ring, but that the entire investigation was about him and about moving money in ways that looked suspicious and alerted the feds. And so now it's really more of a money laundering case in some ways than a prostitution case.
And when do you think that this all came to pass because of his hardball reputation in the past? Apparently it was the bank, it's being reported, that alerted the feds to these suspicious transactions.
Yes. I mean, you know, he doesn't exactly have a friendly face in the Attorney General's office. I mean, the United States Attorney General is Mike Lucchese, who comes from New York, who's been closely identified with Rudy Giuliani throughout his public life. And Rudy Giuliani and Elliott Spitzer hated each other. And the relationships here are not helpful. I mean, there are so many people on Wall Street who hated Elliott Spitzer, all of whom had connections. Dick Grasso, the stock exchange, Ken Langone. I mean, Jack Welch, the head of General Electric, at one point bumps into Elliott Spitzer at the Democratic National Convention. He's a close friend of Ken Langone's, who was the head of Home Depot. And Spitzer says to him, I'm going to put a spike through his heart. And these are the kinds of relationships that can come back to bite you. These are very powerful people.
And perhaps he's feeling that firsthand today. Well, I want to thank both of you for your insight and perspective. Thanks for being with us, Errol Lewis, as well as Wayne Barrett. John?
So what do you think? We're asking you this morning in our quick vote question, should Governor Spitzer resign right now? Well, not much question on where people's sentiments are. 73% of you say yes, 27%